Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. So today we want to talk about a question that I see popping up a lot in the groups of Facebook and on Twitter and Discord and a whole bunch of other places. And that's when people ask, well, a new edition is coming apparently. Now, there is no confirmation, though we're pretty sure a new edition is coming. Now, people generally ask, like, oh, should I wait for the new edition to get into an army? And the question sometimes has merit. Like, sometimes there is definitely a time to wait and bide your time if you are wanting to get into an army, if you know something's coming. You know, like, say, at the moment, if anyone's looking to pick up Legion of Nagash, I would tell them to wait until Soulblight Gravelords come out and see what comes out then, if they want to wait, because, you know, we're going to get a whole bunch of new death stuff for them. And the same thing can be done for an edition where you could probably guarantee that we're going to see some Stormcast in a new starter box, or we're going to see a new Stormcast chamber really early in edition. Might bide you time to wait on some Stormcast. So, hint, Stormcast don't appear in this video. Now, however, that question doesn't need to be met with, nah, wait for the new edition. I think there are certain armies you can look to that do things really well, or are more recent, or have good track record that you can certainly look to get into in time for the new edition to hit. So what I'd like to talk to you all about today is looking at a bunch of armies I think you can get into with no worries about whatever the new edition brings. Your army is going to do what it does no matter what. Like, it's going to be fine. And there's a bunch of different reasons why these armies fit into this bracket, but let's get cracking into it. I've got 6 armies that are great to get into before the new edition. Now, number 1, we have the Daughters of Khaine. For me, this sort of ticks all the boxes of why I think an army could be good to get into for a new edition. For one, Daughters of Khaine are a new book. So what this generally means is that they, around the time of about 6 months before a new edition, you'll start to see books that are probably made for the next edition. This was really noticeable for Idoneth, Deepkin, Legion and Nagash, which were made for the next edition of Age of Sigmar. When they were made for 2.0, they were released at the end of Age of Sigmar 1. Now, Daughters of Khaine are also historically really strong. They've done really well, even after not being released in Age of Sigmar 1, they never looked back. They have been good up until their new book, and they continue to be good with that new book. Nothing has changed for Daughters of Khaine. They are a well-rounded army. And that brings the point, they are well-rounded. They have a high amount of strong builds within the army, and a bunch of different things you can do. I mean, Marathi on her own is a great piece that can almost carry an army by herself, but on top of that, you have shooting, you have cavalry, you have magic potential, you have prayers in case magic goes down the drain for the army at some point. You have backups in like decent combat units, you have more heavy combat units to do mortal wounds. You've got literally every tool in the toolbox, and what this means is that you can easily change up your list slightly if something does happen to particular parts of the Daughters of Khaine in the new edition. So you've got all these bits and pieces to play with where they will just remain strong always, because they've just got the ability to change, which is really important with a new edition coming up. Next up, we've got Lumineth Realm-Lords, and for pretty much the same reasons as Daughters of Khaine. They have a really new army book, and it's quite clear that Games Workshop is pushing this army to the moon. They're clearly made for the new edition. They've got a bunch of rules that are just wacky and out there as well. They're really strong historically. They've done really well in the short time they've been out, and they are well rounded. With the new additions that we've gotten in the latest Lumineth Realm-Lords book, they are now a completely well-rounded army. They've got probably only lacking, I guess, a true hammer within the force, though they have units that can make up for that. But they can do almost any job. I mean, they're heavily dominant in magic and shooting, and they have decent combat potential and good movement as well, with the ability to use magic to supplement that. They've also got a high amount of decent builds. Now, the Alarith are a completely fine build with the Venari. With or without Teclis is a really good build as well. Lumineth just in general can play in a lot of different phases really well, and this leaves them strong for a new edition. Now, I wouldn't be surprised to see more Lumineth come out in the new edition, so this is another great reason to get into Lumineth, because not only are they strong now, but the way we've been seeing them sort of release these parts of these factions, or these sub-factions of the Lumineth, how we've got, you know, the Mountain Temple and the Wind Temple, we've now seen the army is going to get expansions, and it's got more that we know of based on the lore of the army. So this means you can look forward to more new models and upping your game once again. So it not only gives you a start point that's a decent point, but also is going to give you something where you know you've got something in your future eventually. Number 3, Cities of Sigmar. Now, I'm not just throwing this in because this is my favourite army in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. I do really think that they're a great army to get into at any time in the game. What Cities of Sigmar have is a wide range of units that are all quite good. I think I found when playing Cities of Sigmar, I use for almost any unit that is inside that book, and I'm including some of the worst bits about it, like Dark Riders. Even they have uses in army lists. What this means is the army has the ability, because it's got a wide range of scrolls, it's well-rounded as, I guess, a basis for that, because it's got all these different parts to it. It's got shooting, it's got magic, it's got movement, it's got defensive units, it's got offensive units, etc. It's got all those parts because it's got the wide range of models. However, what this allows you to do is it allows you to just swap around. Not only that, but the sub-factions within cities are probably some of the best in the game. They all allow you to play different ways, so you can have that same group of models and like not change your models, but change your sub-faction and play in a completely different manner just by changing your sub-faction, no actual model changes. This for me is a really great thing about cities, because it's actually, unlike say Lumineth or Daughters of Khaine, where if something changes you have the option to go buy other models for the army to change. Cities, you don't have to do that as your first thing. You can, as your first thing, go and change your sub-faction before you actually have to change models, which is really, really cool, and I think something Cities does really well. Don't forget, we've also got the Broken Realms books that have been churning out new Cities of Sigmar sub-factions. We've got Settlers Gain recently in Broken Realms Teclis, and Misthaven and Harkuron in Broken Realms Marathi. Add to that, we've already got 7 standard sub-factions inside the Cities of Sigmar book, and that's 10 different sub-factions with unique ways to play, which really just opens up so many doors for cities. They're also just tons of fun to play, tons of fun to paint. I love them. They would be a great army to get into right now, waiting for that new edition and just being able to change to whatever it needs to change to. Number 4, Sons of Behemat. And why I think they're a great army? Well, it's pretty simple. They are a small model army. They haven't really got much to them. They would just keep doing what they do now and just keep doing it to the new edition. If you're playing Gargants, you're playing with monsters that you just want to go up and smash and take hold of the objectives. Nothing is really going to change for Gargants all that much in the new edition. I don't think the army will play any different. It might have to do some things a little bit different, but really the core mechanic of it is it's Gargants. There's not much that's going to change or really can change for it. So I think you're pretty fine getting into Gargants before a new edition. I mean, they're awesome models for starters. Those Mega Gargants are amazing, but really nothing's going to change for them, is it really? Number 5, Orruk Warclans. First of all, Orruks are a great army to get into just because they're tons of fun to play. I mean, they literally just want to fight. They want to get across that table and smash, and that's really what all of their models do. They've also actually got a decent variety of options in the ways they can play. So first of all, the Orruk Warclans book actually has 3 distinct different factions within it. It has the Big War, which is a mixture of Bone Splitters and Iron Jaws, and then it has both Bone Splitters and Iron Jaws as 2 separate factions on their own as well. What this does straight away, before even getting into sub-factions, just gives you options to play with. You've got these 3 different set of allegiance abilities that you can play with and use either both versions of Orruks in the same army, or choose to play one or the other. Now, what you can do then from there is there are sub-factions for all of them as well, which is really cool. So this further just gives you more ways to play with these models. What's great about this is it means you can generally take the army and change a few models here and there, or sometimes not at all, because you can play all Bone Splitters or all Iron Jaws in Big War. There is no reason to have Iron Jaws and Bone Splitters both in Big War. You can just have an army full of one of them. So straight away, if you have a full Bone Splitters army, you have a full Big War army as well. This is really cool and just gives you that option of changing your way to play without having to change models. But of course, you can add in the Iron Jaws then, and then if Iron Jaws turn out to be the stronger half, you can then invest in those, having already got a starting point of a decent army anyway, thanks to the Savage Orruks you already have. Or you can do the same thing vice versa. Orruks would be a great army to get into for the new edition. If you're looking for something that's just fun and just does exactly what you think it does, Orruks are the army for you. And number 6, I have Ogor Mawtribes. This really is just for the same reasons that I've talked about Orruk Warclans. So we'll talk a little bit about ogres, I guess, and how they're slightly different in how they work. For starters, ogres are an overall army that combines two different subfactions into one force together. They don't have different allegiance abilities, you just get both sets of allegiance abilities so long as you have models in the army to make use of them. This is of course the Gutbusters and the Beastclaw Raiders, the two distinct parts of the ogres. You also have Firebellies and Man-Eaters in there as well. But it's a little bit different. It's more like playing Big Wild with the Orruks, but all the time. You can play all Gutbusters with ogres and it works completely fine. And you can play all Beastclaw Raiders and it works completely fine as well. The army is simple yet effective, wants to get across the table and smash things up, which is really cool, but it does have play in other options. There are some shooting variants in the army which can be a bit swingy, but it does give you those options, and you've also got tools within the force as well, like outflankers with your Skull and your Hunter and your Saber Cats. This just gives ogres a ton of different options, and while they may not be, I guess, the most top tier competitive army at the moment, they definitely have options to play and can generally see through an edition change really, really well. There's not much that will change about how they play because they really do have a bunch of rules. Much like the Sons of Behemat, they've got really cool objective capturing rules as well, which will land them in good stead just by weight of bodies on the table. So you getting some large units of ogre balls might not be a bad idea, or even just the fact that your monsters count as 10, that's pretty decent as well. Ogres have so much play going into a new edition that I really think they'd be a great army to get into, and they're a ton of fun to paint as well. So what are your thoughts on this? If you are a new player, leave some comments below with some questions you might have about getting into an army during a new edition. If you're an experienced player, leave some comments below on what you think you might say is a good army to get into, and leave some reasoning so that any new players looking to get into the game can use this as a resource to try and find some reasoning as to why they should get into certain armies and maybe not some others. If there's any you wouldn't recommend, leave them in the comments below as well. I'd be really interested to hear everyone's thoughts. I think this is a question that gets asked a lot, especially when we are talking about this time when we're potentially going into a new edition. It really does pop up quite a lot, so leave some thoughts. Hopefully this can help a few people get an army before a new edition to be ready to play day one with the rest of us. Well, thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our little community here at Sinful Gaming, you can do so by coming and joining our Discord server, which you'll find a link to in the description of the video. While you're on YouTube as well, go check out my featured channel section, which contains a bunch of other fantastic Age of Sigmar content creators doing everything from battle reports, tactical videos, lore videos, painting tutorials, and more besides that. Lastly though, we'd like to give a shout out to everyone who helps support the channel via Patreon and YouTube members. Thank you to James, AJC, JC, Christian Weir, Soren, Kenny Lowell, Outer and Shot First, Chaospawn, James Crowder, and Andrew Bowen. Thank you all so much for your support. And if you'd like to help support the channel like these fine people do, you can do so by clicking once again on the links down in the description of the video to either YouTube members or Patreon. Thank you all for supporting the channel though, watching the content. Have a nice day, stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.